getting our yard ready to make a rock wall. Well, we got it cleared. You can see that. We pulled the weeds out, the rocks and all of that, but I told you that there was a lot of debris in it too, and I want to show you some of what we got. First of all, you can see we got five little buckets of rocks. Those were all from just that area. And then over here is some of the debris that we got, pieces of wood and cement and glass. And the craziest thing that we had in other parts of the yard were plastic knives. Somebody dumped a whole bunch. And then here are 2 buckets that are the grass and sticks and so forth that we got out. I think you can also see some of the tools we had to use in order to dig them out. A lot of work. So the next step will be planting. So we'll get back to that later. Hi. God has given us such a beautiful sunny day. I thought I'd record the rest of this video out on my deck, and so hopefully other sounds won't be too distracting. While I worked on my rock garden, I couldn't help but recall Jesus' parable in Matthew 13, verses 3 through 23. He talked about the soil and the rocks and how you had to put the seed in the right conditions, the right soil, in order for it to grow. And even though he was talking about a garden, it was really just a metaphor for our spiritual lives. And so I had to ask myself, what is the soil like in my spiritual life? Is it good soil? Is it filled with rocks and debris? And just as in the garden, we had to have good soil. I dug out a lot of debris. I need to do that in my spiritual life. But not only that, I need to have good soil that is fertilized, and I have to have water and sunshine and plants that will grow in our partial shade yard. And so I thought about how I chose what plants would go in my garden. They had to be ones that would grow in that kind of soil and in those kind of light conditions. But I also wanted color, I wanted fragrance, I wanted it to be beautiful. Well, I want my life to be like that too. I want it to be colorful, I want it to be a sweet fragrance that blesses others, and I want to be doing what God wants me to do. And so I have to ask myself, what's the debris in my life? What are the sins? What are the distractions? The things that keep me from being and doing what God wants me to do? It could be many things. It could be the things I choose to do in my everyday life, which may not be bad. They may not be sinful, but they're keeping me from being and doing what God wants me to be and do. I also need to think about the amendments. Am I reading my Bible? That's the most important amendment. Am I turning to God to find out what He has to say? Am I going to church? Am I listening to others that will teach me things that maybe I hadn't thought about before? And what about mentors? Do I have someone that not only encourages me, but corrects me? And then, some of the plants that I put in my garden were root bound. Now, if you're not a gardener, maybe you don't know that if a plant stays in a pot too long, then the roots tend to go around and around, and they can't receive any of the nutrients that are in the soil because they don't reach down into the soil. Well, in our spiritual lives, in my spiritual life, I need to make sure that I'm not root bound, that I'm not stubborn and rebellious. In the garden, you have to do this process that's called tickling the roots. That just means loosening them up and causing them to be capable of going down into the garden. Some of my root-bound plants actually need more than tickling. It was more like scratching. We'll see if they actually grow. We hope so. But in my spiritual life, I need to look at those things that keep me from new ideas that God plants in my heart to new ways of thinking of things, new things he wants me to do. And I don't want to be root bound and stubborn. And then, am I listening to my mentors? If somebody corrects me, does that mean that it's not true, that it's just hurtful? Sometimes that's true. But more than likely, it's something that God really wants me to hear and wants me to either change or wants me to do that I'm not doing. You know, I also put some large rocks in the garden, and I didn't think of them as being something that was bad. It wasn't like all the debris that I dug out. Those maybe represent the things in my life that were hard, that were difficult or hurtful, and they're left there by God in order to help other people, in order for me to go back and see this is how God helped me in that hard situation. I'm praying that I will be a beautiful garden. And so I hope this little lesson is helpful to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you got some gardening ideas too. Bye-bye.